Discover the incredible moment a billionaire turned his jet around for a single mom's life-changing call. On a dreary Chicago morning, Sarah stood at the window of her cramped apartment, the sounds of honking cars and children's laughter echoing in the air like a bittersweet symphony. Her heart raced as the phone rang. It was the call she'd been dreading. Her mother was in critical condition, hours away in a small town. Panic washed over her, tightening her chest as she thought of the bills piling up. How could she possibly get there? Tears welled in her eyes, but she wiped them away. She couldn't break down. Lily, her bright-eyed daughter, deserved a mother who was strong. Meanwhile, aboard a sleek private jet, billionaire Mark Rivers gazed out at the endless skyscape. On his way to a high-stakes meeting, he felt an emptiness gnawing at him. Wealth surrounded him, yet it felt hollow. Then, catching a news segment about Sarah, the single mother pouring her heart and soul into everything for her daughter, he was captivated. Her fierce determination sparked something deep within him. Could he do something meaningful? In a moment of impulsive clarity, Mark instructed the pilot to turn the jet around, a decision that shocked even his own team. Meanwhile, Sarah was pacing in her tiny living room, brainstorming ideas to scrape together a few dollars. Just when she thought hope was lost, she caught sight of the private jet landing at the local airport, its shiny exterior resembling a glimmer of hope. Mark emerged, his tailored suit contrasting starkly with the vibrant hardships of Sarah's neighborhood. Initially, Sarah felt resentment. Here stood a man who embodied everything she resented about the wealthy elite. But as they spoke, moments unfolded that revealed deeper layers. Mark listened intently as Sarah shared her story, her eyes shining with pride as she talked about Lily's ambitions. How could someone like him understand the beauty of community and struggle? Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let us continue. Just when Sarah thought she might finally catch a break, tragedy struck. Her mother's condition suddenly worsened. Time slipped through her fingers like sand, and her heart raced as she glanced at Mark, whose features were etched with concern. Could this city boy who had just arrived in her chaotic world genuinely step up? The tension thickened as their worlds collided. Would Mark use his resources to help her? Would he see beyond the glitz and glamour of his life to the rawness of hers? Amidst emotional turmoil, they faced their greatest test yet, an ultimate confrontation of priorities, family, and the possibility of an unexpected bond. Would they forge ahead together, or would society's walls keep them apart as time ticked away? Sarah's heart pounded in her chest as the seconds seemed to stretch into eternity. The urgency of her mother's worsening condition weighed heavily on her mind. She shifted her gaze to Mark, who stood a few feet away, his brows furrowed in thought. This man, with his wealth and privilege, had stepped into her life at the most critical moment. But could he really grasp the depth of her dilemma? "Mark," she finally said, her voice trembling but determined. "I need to get to my mother. Can you help me?" The question hung in the air, charged with a mix of hope and desperation. She didn't know what to expect, but the fact that he had come all this way felt significant. Mark hesitated for just a fraction of a second, then stepped forward. "What do you need?" His voice was steady, and for the first time, Sarah caught a glimpse of the compassionate man beneath the polished exterior. "Just a ride. I can't afford a plane ticket, and the bus would take too long," she admitted, her eyes filling with tears. A moment passed where their eyes locked, and Sarah felt something inside her shift. It wasn't just about getting to her mother, it was about leaning on someone for support. She could feel her defenses beginning to crumble. Mark nodded, resolutely pulling out his phone. "Let us take my plane. We can get you there in less than an hour." He moved quickly, arranging for the jet's pilot to prepare for takeoff. Sarah could hardly believe what she was hearing. In that moment, hope cracked through her despair like sunlight breaking through clouds. She was about to say yes when a thought dashed through her mind. Was she really going to accept help from a billionaire? As she wrestled with this newfound vulnerability, Mark gave her a reassuring smile. Somehow, he made her feel safe. "Come on. I can't imagine how stressful this is for you," he urged gently. With one last look at her modest apartment, and the prized photographs of Lily taped to the wall, Sarah nodded, even as her heart was pulled tight with uncertainty. She rushed to gather a few essentials while Mark called for a car. It felt surreal. The street she had trudged daily was the same as the one that would now lead her to the jet of a man who had turned his life upside down for her. As they climbed into the car, she sat beside him, the luxurious leather seats a stark contrast to her life. The city sped by outside, but inside, her heart raced even faster. "Thank you," she whispered, feeling the enormity of his kindness wrap around them like a protective cocoon. Mark smiled, but there was more in his eyes. There was curiosity, an almost tangible connection that seemed to grow with each mile. "I'm just doing what anyone would do," he replied softly. His modest words didn't align with the grandeur of his actions. In moments, they pulled up to the private jet's tarmac. The plane gleamed in the sunlight, a symbol of a world Sarah had always viewed as distant, foreign, and often intoxicating. As she stepped onto the metal stairs, doubt mingled with excitement. Was she crossing a threshold into another life, or merely borrowing someone else's story for a moment? When they were finally airborne, Sarah gazed out of the window, watching the ground fall away beneath them. "Just hold on a little longer, Mom," she thought, each heartbeat synchronized with the sound of the engines. She had to believe that everything would work out, that this man who should have been a stranger might end up saving the day. But uncertainty lingered in the air, rising up between them like a fog. Would Mark truly be the ally she needed? And what about the emotional stakes of this surprising partnership? As they shot through the clouds toward a new chapter, a familiar pang slid back into Sarah's heart. What would she learn about Mark's intentions? And would she let his kindness open her heart, even if just a little, when all she knew was struggle? Only time would tell as their journey unfolded under the vast, changing sky. The soft hum of the plane's engines filled the small cabin, blending with the warmth emanating from Mark's presence. Sarah shifted in her seat, biting her lip as her thoughts spun like a whirlwind. She looked at Mark, who seemed focused on the flight path displayed on the small screen ahead. The way his jaw clenched slightly made it clear he was deep in thought. "Are you okay?" he asked, breaking the silence. There was a gentleness in his voice that pierced through her tension. "I think so. Just trying to wrap my mind around everything," Sarah admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. The fact that a billionaire was sitting next to her, helping her in her time of need, felt surreal. She could still feel the weight of her life back home pushing against her. Mark nodded, his expression softening. "You're going to get there. We'll make it in no time," he reassured her. "How often do you help strangers like me?" Sarah blurted out, her curiosity bubbling to the surface. "You didn't have to come. You could let someone else handle it or just ignored the call." His gaze hardened for a fraction of a second, almost as if her question had unlocked a door he didn't want to open. "I guess I just saw someone who needed help," he said slowly, choosing his words carefully. "And I wanted to be there." The sincerity in his voice made her heart swell. Yet part of her remained guarded. Why did he want to help? Was this more than some charitable impulse? The questions danced through her mind, twirling around her fears and hopes. The plane bumped slightly as they entered a patch of turbulence, and Sarah instinctively reached for the armrest. Mark noticed and placed a steadying hand over hers. "It's just a little bumpy," he said, his touch sending a jolt of warmth through her. She turned to him, and for a moment their eyes locked. There was a clear connection, something more than just a simple act of kindness. But it was quickly replaced by a clenching fear. What if I can't get to her in time? Mark's expression shifted, revealing an unfamiliar seriousness. "We'll get there. You have to believe that. It's the only thing you can hold on to right now." She took a deep breath. "It's just, I feel like I'm not supposed to be here, in this moment, getting help when I've always done everything on my own." That's what makes this hard, isn't it? Mark said softly. Accepting help doesn't make you weak, truly. It takes courage to rely on someone else. Sarah felt a tear slip down her cheek. It's just been so hard. I've held everything together for so long, and now I'm scared of what's waiting for me. Mark's hand lingered near hers. Can I ask you something? What if your mother wakes up and sees that you made it? What if she could feel your presence, your love? It might change everything. His words struck a chord deep within her. The image of her mother fighting to stay strong washed over her. You're right, Sarah said, wiping her tears. She needs me. Just then, the plane leveled out, the sunlight flooding through the windows. Sarah gazed out, transfixed by the endless blue sky. Somewhere down there was the answer to her fears, and she knew she had to grasp it. Thank you, Mark. Truly, she said, turning back to him. You didn't have to do this. Mark smiled, but it was a different smile that held a hint of something unspoken. I guess I just couldn't let you go through this alone. And in that moment, a fierce determination surged within her. She wanted to believe in this moment, in him, and maybe, just maybe, in herself again. But just as the plane began its descent, an unexpected jolt rocked them, throwing Sarah back against her seat. Panic seized her heart as alarms began to beep. Mark quickly took control, his expression altering to one of resolve. Hang on, Sarah, he shouted over the noise, but fear gripped her as chaos unfolded. What had they just flown into? Would they make it through this turbulence, or would the darkness of her life reach out to claim them both? The plane shuddered violently, a jolt running through Sarah's body as if the ground itself had given way beneath her. Alarms blared, and the lights flickered ominously in the cabin. Mark's voice cut through the panic, filled with a calm urgency that somehow anchored her in that storm of fear. Stay with me, Sarah. Just breathe. We're trained for this, he shouted, his eyes scanning the cockpit area, while his strong hand remained firmly gripping hers. Her heart raced. She couldn't see what was happening beyond the small windows, but the way the plane bucked and swayed felt like they were caught in an angry dance. Had she made a terrible mistake by flying off like this, believing she could change everything in a single day? Mark, what's going on? Are we? She couldn't finish her sentence, overwhelmed by the weight of dread pressing down on her. Just hold on. We'll get through this, he assured her, his voice steady but strained. He was projecting strength she didn't feel. As most people in danger would do, Sarah found herself clinging to the little thread of hope he offered, even as her hands began to sweat on the armrest. The captain's voice came over the intercom, steady but tinged with urgency. Ladies and gentlemen, we are experiencing unexpected turbulence. Please fasten your seatbelts and remain calm. We will get through this. Sarah felt her anxiety spike but closed her eyes, focusing on Mark's hand wrapped around hers. His warmth cut through the cold fear curling in her stomach. Why are you doing this? She whispered, her voice trembling, but the question was deeper than just the moment. Why was he here and not just a billionaire flying to his next meeting? Mark kept his focus ahead, his face set with determination. Because I can. Because some moments matter more than the next deal, or the next flight. His words weighed heavily in the space between them, and in that chaotic cabin, Sarah saw flickers of vulnerability in him, an unguarded moment wherein she felt she could trust him completely. You could be anywhere else, and yet you chose to be here, with me. He turned his head just slightly, catching her gaze. And I'm not going anywhere now. Not while you need me. That simple declaration, filled with resolve, melted away a bit of the ice encasing her heart. This wasn't just about getting to her mother anymore. It was about survival, resilience, and the unexpected connections that form under pressure. The plane jolted again, and Sarah's breath hitched. Mark squeezed her hand a little tighter, not letting go, as if taking on the weight of her fear alongside her. Stay with me, he urged once more, and she nodded, feeling that tether between them strengthen with every heartbeat. The cabin echoed with the sounds of people whispering prayers, some reaching for their loved ones. She could feel the collective fear surrounding them, but amidst that chaos, she found a flicker of something else, a spark of courage mixed with hope. As the plane stabilized slightly, Mark leaned closer, his voice low and fierce. Remember why you're on this flight. Hold on to that. Her mind raced back to her mother's struggle, the way she had fought through pain and darkness. I wouldn't let anything take that chance away from her, Sarah whispered fiercely. Exactly, he said, his eyes glimmering with encouragement, and I won't let anything take you away from her either. But as the plane began to level out, a sudden shattering sound echoed from the front of the cabin, a crack of thunder in the sky that sent a jolt of fear through them all. They heard the captain's voice, now urgent and strained, as dread wrapped around Sarah's chest like a vice. Was it too late to turn the tide in her mother's favor? Mark's grip tightened again, anchoring her in place. Are we going to be okay? She asked, heart racing. We will be, he breathed, but uncertainty crept into his voice. How close to the edge had they come? Just as they thought they were steadying, the plane lurched again, plunging them into chaos, and amid the chaos, Sarah's heart whispered a desperate plea. What if this moment became the moment of no return? The cabin erupted into a cacophony of gasps and whispers as the plane began to plunge, the familiar calm of the captain's voice now strained and breathless. Sarah clutched Mark's hand tighter, her nails digging into his skin as dread wrapped shackles around her heart. The panic that consumed the space felt tangible. She glanced around, fear etched on every face, drawing strength from Mark's unwavering gaze. Sarah, focus on me, he urged, leading her back to that small, safe pocket created between them. Inhale, exhale, she tried to mimic him, but the air felt thick, suffocating. Each breath felt more laborious than the last. Mark, I'm scared, she confessed, her voice barely above a whisper. I know, he replied, his thumb rubbing soothing circles over her palm. Look at me. The pilots are doing everything they can. You're not alone, okay? Focus on this moment, on how strong you are. Picture your mom. His words struck her, a lifeline thrown amidst the swirling chaos. Her mom, the thought of her mother fighting through her illness rekindled a flame of hope within her. Sarah pictured her with that familiar, comforting smile, but the image was abruptly shattered as the plane lurched violently once again, sending a wave of screams rolling through the cabin. Stay steady, Mark shouted, his voice cutting through the tumult. But as another alarm blared, panic surged within her like a tide. What if we're going down? What if stop that thought right now, he interjected fiercely, a fire igniting in his eyes. It won't help anything. Fight back. We have each other, remember? His words churned with emotion, pushing against the tide of despair threatening to swallow her whole. She concentrated on the weight of his hand in hers, grounding herself in the present. That connection felt more real than the chaos that surrounded them. It was life, unyielding and visceral. Suddenly, the plane steadied again, the roaring twin engines filling the silence. Relief washed over Sarah like a cool breeze, but it was momentary. The captain's voice came back on, shaking yet resolute. We've encountered severe weather, but we're diverting to the nearest airport. Please remain seated. A gasp rippled through the cabin, carrying with it a mixture of fear and tentative hope. They were alive. But how bad did things need to be for them to divert? A knot twisted in her stomach as she turned to Mark, who looked both proud and terrified. What does that mean? She asked, gripping his hand even tighter. It means they're doing what they can to keep us safe. We trust the pilots. But it might get bumpy again, he said, his voice steady. Why are you so calm? She questioned, threading her fingers through his. You could be anywhere, doing anything. Why stay here? He dropped his chin, his expression softening. Because I've learned there are moments that change everything. And for some of us, they happen when we least expect it. Her heart pounded. But this isn't just about us. What if we're putting our lives in danger for my mom? Mark's gaze pierced through the tension. No one is putting anyone's life at risk. You're fighting for her, for yourself. That's worth everything. The words sank deep, awakening something fierce within her. It wasn't just a flight anymore. It was about defiance against despair. A sudden, horrifying shriek of metal on metal jolted Sarah from her focus, and the panic swung back like a pendulum. The plane dropped again, and screams erupted from every corner. Mark's grip tightened, his voice a steady anchor in the storm. "Stay with me, Sarah. Look at me." But her eyes were drawn upward, caught in the bind of fear and desperation. She felt the heat rising in her face, the adrenaline pulsing in her veins. Over the chaos, she realized there was something unexpected in Mark's eyes as he searched hers, the flicker of something deeper than just friendship. And then, just as another shudder ran through the plane, she caught a glimpse of the ground below. The airport approached quickly, but would they make it in time? As hope and fear collided once more, a question hung between them, one that pushed through the wild atmosphere of uncertainty. Would they land safely? Or would this perilous endeavor become more than either of them had bargained for? The plane rocked violently, sending Sarah's stomach lurching. Mark's hand was a solid anchor amidst the chaos, and she squeezed it tightly, wishing with every fiber of her being that they would land safely. As the flight attendants rushed down the aisles, ensuring everyone was buckled in, the reality of the situation crashed down on her. Danger loomed, and so did uncertainty about what awaited them below. "Do you think we'll make it?" Sarah blurted, the words tumbling out in a rush of desperation. She glanced at Mark, hoping for the reassurance she desperately craved. He nodded, his expression fierce. "We will. Just keep breathing, okay? We'll land." The captain's voice broke through again, low and urgent. "Prepare for turbulence as we descend. Please stay in your seats." The shrill sound of alarms echoed once more, sending a fresh wave of panic through the cabin. Mark leaned closer, his lips near her ear. "Listen. If we hit some rough air, just remember that it's normal. They've done this thousands of times. You can trust them," he said, and she could sense the determination in his words. But she was still stuck in a whirlwind of fear, a storm brewing inside her head. What if they didn't land safely? The thought sent goosebumps prickling along her skin. She shut her eyes tight and focused once again on her mom. The hardships they'd faced together felt lighter somehow in her mind, but this felt monumental. Then there was another shudder, and the plane dropped again. Screams erupted, piercing the claustrophobic atmosphere. Sarah stole a glance at the people around her, strangers now bound together by shared terror. Faces were pale, hands clasping each other tightly, wide eyes searching for answers. "Breathe with me," Mark said, his voice a low promise. He inhaled deeply, then exhaled slowly, and she tried to mimic him, drawing strength from his steadiness. Each breath made the chaos feel slightly more manageable. It was moments like this that reminded her of the resilience of the human spirit, even when the world felt like it was on fire. Suddenly, the plane jolted sideways. Gasps filled the cabin as people instinctively braced against their seats, the overhead compartments rattling dangerously. "I don't," Sarah started, but Mark cut her off. "Keep your eyes on me," he said, forcefully but gently. "I'm right here." Locking her gaze with his, she felt a flicker of hope leap to life. They were together, and that small fact seemed to shift her perception. Whatever happened, they would face it side by side. As the plane plunged again, a tremor of realization struck her. Mark wasn't just a friend. The unwavering support he displayed ignited a warmth that spread through her. What if? Sarah barely had time to finish the thought before the plane dipped as if surrendering to gravity's relentless pull. But then, just as fast, the descent became less jagged. The engines roared back, and she felt the aircraft level off, a sensation that was both disorienting and reassuring. The captain's voice rang through the cabin once more, this time edged with a hint of relief. "We're stabilizing. Thank you for your patience." Wide-eyed, Sarah exchanged glances with Mark, who had been watching her closely. Their hearts seemed to beat in unison, both feeling a sense of reprieve wash over them. But would it last? Just as they took a collective breath, the plane trembled again, only this time, it was different. "Brace for landing," came the announcement, and Sarah's heart sank with a mix of dread and anticipation. The runway drew nearer, but the question loomed in her mind: would they land safely? Or was this moment just a prelude to something even more terrifying? As her hands gripped the armrests, she stole another glance at Mark. The intensity in his eyes mirrored her own fear, yet she saw something else, a spark of determination, even hope, glimmering just beneath the surface. They were on the verge of something, and she could feel it in the air around them. What would happen once they touched down? Would their lives change forever? The plane jolted as it touched the runway, sending a surge of adrenaline through Sarah's veins. Relief washed over her. They had made it. The collective sigh from the passengers echoed, a chorus of astonished gratitude. But as the aircraft rolled down the runway, something began to flicker in her mind. The chaos of the past few minutes began to settle into a memory she would hold close forever. Mark released her hand, still looking intensely into her eyes. "We did it," he said, his voice a mixture of disbelief and joy. She could see the swell of emotions beneath his strong facade, and it was contagious. "Yeah, we did," she responded, her voice barely above a whisper. The cabin erupted into a cacophony of chatter as people began to unbuckle their seatbelts, nervous laughter mingling with the sound of excited shouts. Sarah's heart beat rapidly as they waited, the noise around her fading. She could feel the weight of the moment pressing on her chest. Suddenly, someone nearby burst into tears and embraced a stranger. For a moment, Sarah felt a connection with this woman, a shared understanding of fragility and resilience. They had all flirted with fate and emerged still breathing, still alive. As the plane finally came to a stop, the flight attendants instructed passengers to remain seated until they could deplane. Sarah turned toward Mark, who still wore that fierce expression. "We need to get out of here," he said, looking both relieved and worried. "I mean, we just went through hell together. Let's make sure we celebrate the fact that we're still here." A rush of warmth flooded her body. The calmness between them had transformed into a shared understanding, a bond that had been forged in the heat of danger. "What do you have in mind?" she asked, a hint of mischief brightening her voice. Mark leaned closer, lowering his voice as if sharing a secret. "I know a great little diner just down the road. Best pancakes in town." The idea of pancakes felt absurdly normal in the wake of such an ordeal, but the thought put a smile on Sarah's face. "Pancakes sound wonderful," she agreed, her stomach rumbling in response. The plane doors opened, and the fresh air poured in. As they disembarked, the hustle of the airport hit them like a wave. People hurried back to their routine, oblivious to what had just unfolded inside that metal tube. Sarah felt lighter on her feet, buoyed by the knowledge that her fears had not crushed her but instead brought her closer to Mark. They stepped into the terminal, the chaos around them swirling like an uncharted storm. Just moments ago, she had been gripped by fear, but now there was a sense of clarity. Her feelings for Mark felt undeniable. "What if we had never met?" Sarah pondered aloud. "What if this hadn't happened at all?" He turned toward her sharply, the flicker of determination in his eyes sparking again. Wouldn't he change a thing? Today was meant to happen. Just like us. Just as she was about to reply, a shriek erupted from the crowd, a mother clutching her child, tears streaming down her face from joy and disbelief. It snapped Sarah's thoughts back to reality. Life had its way of throwing curveballs, but amid the chaos, there were also moments that cracked the facade just enough to let the light in. As they made their way to the exit, Sarah felt that spark between them grow stronger. But what did it mean? Would this connection hold in the light of day, beyond the adrenaline and the airplane seats? "Are you ready for those pancakes?" Mark asked, his face breaking into a warm smile that made her heart flutter. And in that breathless moment of uncertainty, a thought gripped her. What if this was the beginning of something incredible? What would she risk for that? As the doors parted, revealing a world waiting beyond, she took a step forward, eager to discover what lay ahead. But deep inside, she couldn't shake a lingering question: was this the spark of a new beginning, or had they simply survived a battle that would ultimately lead to a different war? The diner was a kaleidoscope of colors, all vibrant reds and yellows, filled with chatter and the aroma of maple syrup. It felt like stepping into a different world, one where the chaos of a plane ride was forgotten, and simple pleasures took center stage. Sarah took a deep breath, soaking in the scents of fresh coffee and crispy bacon. Mark slid into the booth across from her, his eyes sparkling with mischief. So, what's on the menu for you? Breakfast or dessert? Both, she declared, grinning as she picked up the laminated menu. Everything looked so delicious, but her heart was set on pancakes. I think I've earned something indulgent after that flight. Definitely, he said, a laugh escaping his lips. One order of pancakes, coming right up. As they placed their orders, she couldn't help but admire how effortlessly Mark commanded the space around him. He joked with the waitress, his charm radiating in every interaction. It made Sarah laugh, and surprisingly it made her relax. She felt the weight of the last few hours lifting, replaced by an excitement bubbling beneath the surface. Once the plates arrived, the syrup glistened like treasures on the fluffy stacks. To new beginnings, Mark said, holding up his coffee cup for a toast. To new beginnings, she echoed, clinking her cup against his. They dug into their meals, and with every bite, Sarah savored not just the food but the moment. In a way, it was surreal. Just hours ago, they were in life-or-death situations, and now, here they were, indulging in pancakes as if it were the most normal thing in the world. But this wasn't just about food, it was a feast of possibilities. Can I ask you something? Sarah ventured, her fork hovering over her plate. Why did you take my hand on the plane? You didn't even know me. Mark paused, his expression shifting. There was a sincerity in his eyes, a seriousness that made her heart race. In moments of crisis, we instinctively reach for others. It's human. But beyond that, when I looked at you, I saw someone who needed support. I couldn't just sit there and do nothing. Her heart fluttered again, but this time, it felt heavier. How could he see her so clearly? But isn't this a bit crazy? She asked, voice barely above a whisper. We're strangers and yet here we are. Ah, the magic of fate, Mark replied, a playful smile returning. Or maybe it's just about recognizing when something feels right. Sarah felt a rush of emotions: confusion, curiosity, hope. She was drawn to him in ways that felt unsettling and thrilling at the same time. What if this is a moment, and nothing more? She asked, searching for clarity. Then let's savor the moment, he challenged, leaning closer. We can't predict the future. But we can enjoy where we are right now. She considered this, letting his words sink in. Maybe this was about more than just what happened on the plane. It was about allowing herself the freedom to cherish the unpredictability of life. Just then, the door swung open, letting in a rush of cold air. Sarah turned to see a small family enter the diner, each one beaming with the kind of joy that filled the room. The sight struck a chord deep inside her, a reminder of the life she always dreamed of, a life filled with warmth, laughter, and connection. As she watched, a pang of longing swept through her. Turning back to Mark, she caught a glimmer of vulnerability in his expression. It was a fleeting moment, but it ignited a burning question in her heart. If this was more than just a moment, what was she willing to risk to explore it? Before she could voice her thoughts, Mark leaned back, a determined look on his face. What do you say we make a pact? A pact? The word hung in the air, heavy with implications. What kind of pact? To embrace whatever comes next, he said, his voice full of conviction. Together. At that moment, her heart raced for completely different reasons. Her mind raced with possibilities and uncertainties. Could this truly be the beginning of something incredible, or was it merely a fleeting spark that would vanish just as quickly? As she met his gaze, a decision loomed, one that would change everything. Could she trust her heart and dive in, or would fear keep her tethered to familiar shores? And in that silence, the diner pulsing with life around them, Sarah felt a shift within. What would she choose? Would she step boldly into the unknown, or would doubt hold her back? The air was thick with promise as Sarah studied Mark's face, his eyes urging her to take that leap with him. What had she been doing, holding herself back out of fear? After years of playing it safe, this was her opportunity to ditch the chains of caution, even if just for this moment. What would that look like? She asked, almost timidly. Mark smiled broadly, as if he expected her to ask the very question. We throw caution to the wind. We embrace spontaneity, adventure, and whatever life offers. We don't let fear of the unknown define us. She could feel her heart pounding in her chest, both excited and terrified by his words. But the truth was, deep down, she craved adventure. She thought of Missy, her daughter, and how she always encouraged her to reach for the stars. So, no looking back, huh? Exactly, he said, his voice warm and inviting. Just forward. Together. For a fleeting second, uncertainty danced in her mind. But then, she felt something shift inside her. The heavy weight of doubt began to lift, replaced with a flicker of hope. Could she really do this? All right, she said, the words almost a whisper. Let us do it. Let us embrace whatever comes next. Mark's grin widened, and it filled her with a rush of warmth. You won't regret it. I promise. They finished their breakfast, laughter spilling easily between them. Each shared story revealed layers of themselves, and Sarah learned about Mark's childhood, his ambitions, and the challenges he faced. Every word fueled her connection to him. This was not just a man she shared a flight with. He was someone with depth, someone who understood her journey. As they left the diner, the brisk morning air greeted them like a refreshing embrace. Mark had suggested a local festival happening nearby, a small event showcasing crafts and foods. It was spontaneous, unexpected. Just like what they had decided to embark upon together. When they arrived at the festival, it was like entering a different world. The scent of fresh popcorn and cinnamon swirled around them, the laughter of children met their ears, and vibrant colors painted every corner. Sarah could hardly contain her excitement. It all felt so exhilarating and alive. Look at that! She exclaimed, pointing to a booth where local artists displayed their work. In that moment, she felt a surge of inspiration. For the first time in a long while, she could envision life beyond routine, beyond fear. Let us check it out. Mark grasped her hand, pulling her toward the display. As they wandered, the feeling that life was just beginning washed over her. Each small moment, from admiring beautiful pottery to sharing playful banter about silly hats, filled her heart with a newfound freedom. But as the day wore on, Sarah noticed a shift in Mark. He seemed thoughtful, almost distant. There was a flicker of something in his eyes, as if he wrestled with thoughts he couldn't express. As they paused near a stall selling handmade jewelry, she decided to bring it up. Hey, you alright? She asked gently, concern creeping into her voice. You seem a bit distracted. Mark turned to her, his brow furrowing slightly. Just thinking about how fast everything is happening. It's like we've jumped into something without looking back. His honesty resonated within her. She understood that, even as they forged ahead, the shadows of uncertainty still lingered. We can slow down if you want, she offered, sensing the vulnerability in his tone. This doesn't have to be rushed. He looked at her, and for a moment, everything hung in the balance. The warmth of connection encased them, yet the weight of reality threatened to pull them apart. Sarah, he began, his voice softer now. What happens when the thrill fades, and we're left with just us? Her heart raced. Was he afraid of what would come after? As she opened her mouth to answer, a loud cheer erupted from a nearby stage. A local band had started playing a lively tune that filled the atmosphere with energy. Dance with me! She shouted impulsively, grabbing his hand. Mark hesitated, but seeing the playful smile on her face, he finally relented. They danced, laughing at their own clumsiness, forgetting about the heavy questions hanging in the air. For that moment, all that mattered was the music and the connection between them. But as the song reached its climax, Sarah felt a surge of realization. They couldn't run from the truth forever. While they clung to this fleeting joy, reality still loomed. What would it mean when the thrill of the day faded, and daily life crept back, pulling them in different directions? As the music thrummed through her, she couldn't shake the feeling that the real test was yet to come. And deep down, she knew she needed to know if they could survive beyond the thrill of this moment. Just then, Mark's gaze locked onto hers, his expression serious. After this, where do we go from here? The question echoed in her mind. Would they ride this wave together, or would they crash when they faced reality? As the final chords of the song rang out, uncertainty filled the space between them. They both knew change was in the air, but was it worth it? Would stepping further into the unknown lead them towards something beautiful, or was it a leap they hadn't prepared for? With her heart racing, Sarah realized this was only the beginning. Would their pact hold strong, or would fear pull them apart just when the journey was about to truly start? The sun hung low as Mark and Sarah strolled through the bustling streets of the festival, their laughter mingling with the sounds of music and excitement. Mark could sense a transformation blooming within Sarah, just as he felt ripples of change within himself. The morning's chaos had forged an unbreakable bond between them, a shared experience that felt both exhilarating and terrifying. As they navigated the colorful booths, Sarah's heart fluttered at each little moment of connection. Mark's attentive smile, the way he squeezed her hand to draw her near, awakened a warmth she hadn't allowed herself to feel in so long. They wandered past artisan crafts, their fingers brushing against warm pottery and hand-woven fabrics. Each item stirred dreams of a simpler life, one where joy and creativity thrived, something Sarah yearned for amidst the grind of just getting by, but lurking beneath that joy was uncertainty. At times, Sarah would catch Mark's eyes drifting off, a shadow crossing his features. Those moments of introspection made her wonder, what was he really feeling? Did he fear that the thrill would fade once they returned to reality? In a lighter moment, Sarah pulled Mark toward a face-painting booth. "Let us do it. I always wanted to feel like a kid again," she giggled, the idea bubbling with spontaneity. Mark's incredulous laugh lit up her spirit further. "Okay, why not?" he chuckled, a glimmer of mischief dancing in his eyes. They emerged moments later, Mark sporting a playful tiger stripe on his cheek, while Sarah wore a sparkling sun. Laughter filled the air as they posed for a silly selfie, the weight of their earlier conversation dissolving, if only temporarily. But as the sun dipped lower, golden hues spilled across the festival, illuminating Sarah's face in a soft glow. Mark's heart thudded as he took it all in, how carefree she looked, yet a flicker of concern lingered in his gut. They had shared something profound, but how could they navigate life beyond this enchanting day? He longed to know if their connection could withstand the tests of reality. "Sarah," he began hesitantly, his voice threading through the din of the crowd. "What do you think will happen when the music fades?" Her laughter quieted as she turned to him, the warmth in her gaze slipping slightly. "I think we make our own music," she replied, a hint of sadness touching her smile. "But that's easier said than done." The fabric of joy began to fray, unspooled by fear. Mark felt a pang of helplessness. "Let us not lose this moment. We can visit each other, dream together, whatever it takes. Just promise me we'll keep trying." She smiled, but tears formed in her eyes. "Is it that simple? Can we really make it work when life gets in the way?" Mark stepped closer, feeling the intensity of their connection. "I believe we can. I want to fight for this. For you." His heart raced at the vulnerability in his words. "You've made me rethink everything. I can't imagine letting fear dictate my future when there's a chance with you." Sarah took a deep breath, a myriad of emotions swirling within her. At that moment, everything felt so raw and real. "Maybe embracing the unknown is worth the risk," she whispered, the weight of uncertainty slowly lifting. "We can build something here, together." Before they could delve deeper, a cheer erupted from the nearby stage as a local band began a lively set. The infectious rhythm resonated throughout the festival, and Mark gestured toward the stage. "Let us dance." Hand in hand, they joined the throng of festivity, the music wrapping around them like a warm embrace. As they moved to the beat, laughter bubbled from Sarah's lips, each step pulling her further away from her fears. Mark twirled her under the golden light, and as she spun back into his arms, the world around them blurring into the vibrant colors of fall. Suddenly, she paused, gazing deep into his eyes. "I want to lean into this, Mark. Let us promise to meet each other halfway, no matter how messy it gets." "Absolutely," he replied, unable to contain his smile. "Let us promise to figure it out step by step." In that moment, amidst the rhythm of life, they forged a pact, a commitment that transcended their thrilling day. It wouldn't be easy, but as the music swelled, they both felt a renewed sense of hope flourishing between them, bright and unyielding like the sun above. As they continued to dance, surrounded by joyful strangers, Sarah could feel the weight of doubt lifting, replaced by the exhilarating rush of possibility. This was just the beginning. The road ahead might be unpredictable, but she was ready to embrace whatever came next. Together. As night descended upon the festival, the stars twinkled overhead, offering silent promises that their story was far from over. Both Sarah and Mark, hand in hand, moved forward, ready to explore the adventure waiting just beyond the horizon. It was time to let go of fear and step boldly into a future filled with endless potential. This is the moment to show your support. You need to subscribe now to catch our next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and let others feel this transformative journey. Comment below with your reactions and feelings about this ending. And don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Your support means everything.